I'm saying next time, break the evidence. All you do, you come here, corruption. Just here. Next time you come here, break your I am not talking about that. I'm talking about you in 2024, December, saying there's corruption. Bring it.
Let me ask you this question. I would like to ask the AG to propose legislation for what we call small claims court. There are lots of poor people, to an example you just gave, that they have issues with others and sometimes with large firms, but the lawyer fee is greater than the fee you're claiming.
It is their
right.
Yes. A right. The right that someone has. All of our rights exist in context.
What's the context of a second medical opinion?
Because you disrespected the process.
No.
Jesus, this is common sense, man.
Any situation which you seem to do, you're just dealing with Afro-Guyanese issues. If one, you can't bring and pull the leaders of the African community together, you're failing. And if two, you can't put forward a vision, a blueprint, and a plan for African Guyanese, you're failing as well.
Hi there, pleasant Friday evening to you. This is the Freddie Kissoon show with co-host Leonard Craig. She appeared on our program the past 3 years, and both interviews quite interesting. One of the known faces of the PPP government the past 15 years, except for the interregnum when there was APNUAFC, is attorney at law and long-standing Minister of Education, Priya Manickchand. I have taught Ms. Manickchand as a student in UG, and there's always a warm feeling when you're either discussing or in conversation with one of your past students. Since she was a student of mine, Ms. Manickchand has flown to the skies. I guess she will react to that. But Minister, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
My first question is a commonsensical journalistic question. It's been a long ride as the Minister of Education, and I don't normally flatter people, but I would say you have done a good job. Could you tell us, if it's possible, just one, if it's not possible to have one, then you could tell us the 2 or 3. What is the one thing that you've achieved that you feel emotionally and philosophically proud of as your stint as a minister?
Better access. Better access, but it has to go hand in hand with higher quality. Because better access simply means that more children could go to nursery school, primary school, secondary school now than ever before. But we don't only want children sitting in classrooms, we want when they go into those desks and benches that they have a high quality education. But one of the things I'm most pleased with is how we have been able to improve access phenomenally in a 1-year finale 5-year term. And I say that because the country hasn't changed, the number of contractors, the number of skilled people, the number of engineers. We haven't changed out some of our very archaic systems in procurement, in people, like the technical people who follow every rule to make sure something can get done. So we still have all those burdens, and yet we have been able to take a region like Region 9, build 22 nursery schools, 8 primary schools, and we're currently building 9 secondary schools in one region. In Georgetown, we have built as secondary schools. St. George's, which we commissioned yesterday with President Ali. We'll commission Christchurch. We're commissioning Christchurch on Thursday. We are going to commission the St. Mary's, which will be the Newburgh Dam Secondary shortly. And we have built back St. Rose's, as you know, North Rheinveld, extended QC, Bishops, Saints, Joseph's, East Rumveld, St. Winifred's, Campbellville Secondary, Tocqueville, we're building back Houston. So it's huge infrastructure work going on, even as we raise the quality in what already exists. So the biggest thing, two things would be access and quality that we've changed.
You're proud that you have engineered or shaped better and frequent and deeper access of Guyanese youth to education.
Yes, yeah, but not alone. Not alone. I've been
Of course, you had a
asked
team.
to. Well, I've been asked to manage the ministry, and if you had a president or a general secretary, vice president, who didn't want that, then it would have been almost impossible. So this is what the party in government wants. We want better access. I'm just privileged to have been in the seat that was able to do that. And I have an amazing team, mostly because we have some obstructionists here too. But I have an amazing team across the professional staff, not the technical staff, the professional staff in the ministry, who understand more than anybody else because they have served in regions. They know what it means when a child cannot go to secondary school, what that means. It means back down, it means pregnancies, it means that's the end of their life, that's the end of their youth. They have really teamed up with me to make sure this happens.
Leonard?
Welcome again, Minister.
Well, I like the mobile unit where y'all are coming out to people.
Yeah, because
Makes
we
it a lot
realize
easier.
sometimes, it's for convenience.
And we get to see your environment, and you have
Yeah.
a nice office.
Well, this is Nicolette. You could thank Nicolette. I inherited a beautiful office from Nicolette.
Well, I wanted to start with something analogous to that. I remember in 2017, there was a May Day parade, and you went into GTU compound. Nicolette passed in 5 minutes before you.
Who's
And she
Nicolette?
just said, Nicolette Henry, the former.
Oh.
And she just said hi to the teachers and passed. And when you entered, all the teachers rushed to you, asked for photograph, and the whole thing was different. Where do you get that kind of, how did you?
I can answer that because they recognize a rock star when it's anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. I have an amazing. My mother was a teacher until retirement, and then worked with a ministry. So she's always worked in education. My grandfather, her father, was a head teacher.
Okay.
A good number of my aunts.
It runs
and
in the
her
family.
cousins, yeah, they're full teaching profession, and I saw. My mother would come home 6 and 7 in the evenings. My mother's entire salary was probably spent looking after children in her care, and she never wanted the Stella Marises and so on. She felt she could better be placed at schools where she could work to bring up children. So she never accepted invitations to go to what were the elite schools, even though we might have been there. And she defied my father, who for much of her professional life, he had calmed down in the end, didn't want her to work. And so I've seen how teaching can change lives, and I see that now. A good teacher, not only through my children, but through the system, a good teacher could mean the difference between a child doing really well and a child doing really poorly, a child loving a subject and a child hating a subject. And it could really mean the difference between children growing up into being adults who can look after themselves and their families comfortably and not. So yeah, so I maybe the way I treated them. So I have grave differences with teachers and how, but it's never personal. It's it's a difference, and then we move past that. And hitherto, the current president or whatever, just had an election. I've always had good relations with the union. I went to school and paid and learned how to do what a union does, which is to represent people. So I have enormous respect for unions across the country. And that was, the teachers union has always had a relationship with the Ministry of Education.
Something happened just a moment ago in this interview that has increased my respect for you a tad bit more, by saying that you inherited a beautiful office from from the former minister, which is not of your party, which shows a kind of like a bigger person to say that. A lot of people might not want to say that. And so I want to use that to move on to something else. The platform we are on now is owned by one Guyanese critic. And you came in for some tongue lashing from him recently, and it takes a bigger person to appear on the same platform. That is a trait you have. You acquire that. So I'm asking you two questions in one. How do you see my thoughts that I just mentioned, and how have you been able to reconcile in your mind the tongue licks you got from
I don't consider it tongue licks. I think critic was wholly uninformed about his statements. He had no clue what he was talking about. And Leno, I never consider myself anybody's victim. So critic said something stupid. I said, in response, I said he said something stupid. And I'm done with that.
Okay.
Right? It's not, he's also said to me that he didn't understand the issue and that he was reading something and reacting on the spot. But even if he didn't say that to me, I dealt with it and I was done with it.
Okay.
Yeah. And the thing about inheriting this, the PPP has notoriously not allowed for the extravagances. And I personally don't like it. So we've been trying to fix up outside. See how dilapidated out there looks? I only see it through the eyes of people when they come into the ministry, and I realize, ooh, while you were sitting here, it wasn't that fancy. It didn't look that nice. But we'd prefer to spend money on, textbooks and those kinds of things, school feeding and so on, not the nice furniture and paintings. And I think because these were in Frank's office when he was Minister of Culture, Youth and Sports, they probably belong over there. But they had some movement in the APNU government where the ministries were a little mixed up or something. I'm not really sure. They'd collapsed Culture, Youth and Sport and they had it as education. And so I think these probably moved over when she came over.
My first question is a coin. It has two sides. The apogee of your career, you said, you are proud that more access to education. What's the downside? What is the moment, and still that moment exists, that you say, I wish it wasn't like this, or I wish I could do more? What is the lowest moment in the long-standing career of the Minister of Education?
It would be a people moment. But I don't dwell on those. But it is having within the ministry people, smaller number, who would prefer to see you not succeed without understanding that is very bratty and personalized, and if we don't succeed, it's children that will suffer. And then having to climb out of my space where it was just easier to walk from that and say, no, Guyana deserves more than giving in to this brattiness. So that's probably the lowest moment, but nothing that, because while it sounds small, it's also something that every day gets in the way of what you want to do. So if you have an accounting officer, for example, who will find every rule to apply about why a school can't get furniture, that makes your job a lot harder, unless you're determined to make sure every school gets furniture, and then we make sure that happens without any obstructionist getting in the way. Let me put it that way. But nothing else major. I mean, there are a lot of frustrations in terms of, I just finished meeting this morning with the new contractors for Hosororo Secondary. Hosororo is Region 1, Mabaruma Sub-District. And if we are to, so we awarded that school about 2 years ago, and then we had to terminate that contract because the person who had won in accordance with the public procurement legislation couldn't finish the school. And so these are new contractors. And I was explaining to them that this is not a building for us. It's a building for you, for us, this is the difference between children getting a secondary education and not getting a secondary education. And if we're to finish this school, the entire sub-district of Mabaruma is going to be able to go to school. And so those are the frustrating things where you can't, do we terminate this contract and then take 2 more years to get a new one because the process is so long? Do we hold their hands and beg them and plead them and puja them, if you know that word? Do we
You come
work
from
along?
World, you should.
Do we work along with them? Those are the, so you have frustrating people moments. And I don't think, except for the ones that are malicious, and there are some of those, I think a lot of it is just capacity. The country is growing so quickly and so rapidly that we don't have sometimes the human resources to take us where we want to be, where we can be. And those are some frustrations.
Okay, you did mention that you had some teachers in your family.
A lot.
And so on. Any politicians? How did you come to be in politics to the extent of becoming a minister? Who invited you to?
That's a very funny story. So my mother went to school with a lady now, a nurse. She's now a nurse named Nazleen Mohammed. And she's married to Desmond Mohammed. I don't know if you know Desmond. I think he was the PPP's campaign manager in 97, around 97, him as well as Jeff De Silva. And so Auntie Nazleen came into the country, and she came to visit. I think I was about 19 at the time, or 17, somewhere around there. And she, in visiting, I'd said to her husband, or we were just talking in the living room sort of, that I'd gone to a couple of meetings, both PNC as well as PPP. And the PPP seemed to be the party that was pro-poor, pro-development, was listening a little bit more, had a clearer pathway. And he said, oh, that's interesting. Well, would you like to help? And I said, yeah, because this seems to be the party that could run the country. And he said, all right, let's see how we can get you volunteering. At the time, I didn't realize he was the campaign manager. And then my friend Renuka, who you might know, so by the next week, he'd invited us over to Freedom House. And our job was to wrap scotch tape around the pencil, because in the polling kit they give you a pencil and a scotch tape, but the PPP is too cheap. They give each polling agent scotch tape. Still now, so they were dividing one roll of scotch tape in like 4 or 5 pencils. So you would wrap the tape around the pencil. So the polling agent would have tape, but not a whole roll.
Right.
And that's what I did until someone found out that I had done law. So by that time I'd finished law. I might have been about 19. And then asked me to interpret a couple of sections and stuff. And every year I just went back when they had elections
Okay.
to help out.
Remember your word? Big man is done. That's Nigel using the Tiffet thing.
Yeah. That's
The big man
recently.
is done. What has been done? What is it about Tiffet that Nigel Hughes didn't
So
understand?
he was saying that they're going to do a TVET policy, and they were going to build out institutions for children to do TVET, and we finished that. We have a TVET policy that was not only for Guyana but funded by our international financial partners, as well as approved by them, and approved by in keeping with what our national plan is. And just the AFC just keeps disappointing. They come back with things. You may or may not recall that when we first came into office, Kathy Hughes had insisted that she had put smart classrooms in 11 classrooms. And even though the press went to those schools and spoke to teachers and students and parents, and it was there, and there were pictures of empty walls, she still doubled down and said, yeah, we did it. And they didn't. The first smart classroom ever established was in 2014 at North Rheinveld. And when we came back into office, it was the only smart classroom existing in this country.
You know, one of the things you have not been given credit for, it became obscure. But in your career, I would know these things because my job. You were the first public person to hold public office in politics that accepted no-fault divorce. And it was nailing nearing to be on the books, and I don't know what happened, but it's on the books now. And I don't think people know that no-fault divorce, you single-handedly pioneered that. No other minister in opposition in government, no lawyer talked about it in the interview, wrote an article about it. That was good. We now have no-fault divorce.
Yeah, well, thank you for recognizing it. So that was, if you're practicing law, and I did a lot of family law, you and I are married. We're separated, we're living apart. You have another woman, I have another, or maybe not. And we managed to get past our bitterness and our hurt, and we're co-parenting. But you now want to move on with your life, and you want to get a divorce. The only way you could have gotten that was to come and say mean, ill things about me, because we only had 3 grounds. It was cruelty, malicious desertion, and adultery. So you had to come and say I was a horrible person. I had 10 men. I treated you badly, and all of it may, even if it were true, we got past that, and we were co-parenting. And now you bring all this bitterness back, and it hurts children in a relationship that was already in crisis. It served no purpose. So what people started doing was, a lot of people were just lying. And so what we did, well, we tried to do it in 2011 to 2014, and then I think we had some resistance from people who didn't understand. Maybe I wasn't articulate enough. So the church thought some parts of the church, that I was encouraging the breaking up of families. But it doesn't matter. We have no-fault divorce now, and nobody's running to get a divorce because they can. Nobody goes to get a divorce because you can. And then we raised it again this time, and I'm happy to see that it's on the books now. We haven't stopped you from giving fault if you want, but it's now an option for families where you could say this is a civilized departure, and we don't have to show fault. We can just say we have irreconcilable differences and move on.
You mentioned that you have been around the PPP since late teen.
Well, 97.
Or early 20s, whatever it turns out to be. Which is quite a number of years. It is being reported that you're not a member of the PPP, but a member of the civic component. Why, after so long, haven't you seen anything in the PPP that caused you to want to apply for membership, be part of the central exec and things like that? Why?
I wouldn't put it that I haven't seen anything in the PPP. I'm fully associated with the PPP. I can't imagine another party more fit for government. I don't think, for me, it doesn't make a difference. What's the difference with if I hold a party card or I don't? Am I willing to serve under this party with its policies? Yes. Am I allowed to contribute to what those policies can and should be without a party card? Yes. There may be things I cannot participate in, such as whatever happens at their central committee or exec committee, but so what? To me, I've always been a little reluctant to be so wedded to a group that sometimes, you can lose sight of your own clarity. I don't feel like I think it's beautiful that the People's Progressive Party allows for people who do not hold party cards to associate and belong and be welcome with them and to contribute equally. And I think that was Sherry's entire vision for the civic component. You said I'm a member of the civic. I'm not a member of anything. I'm a contributing citizen in the country who believes in the PPP seat to run the country. But the idea, I think, was to broaden the scope of the party, to allow for people who had independent views or who didn't fully subscribe to all of their ideological positions to contribute to this country through this party. And I think it has worked beautifully over the years.
So my takeaway from that would be that the 17-year-old...
I'm not closed to joining the party. I just never got around to it.
Right. So the 17-year-old that is listening or watching this program on social media, their takeaway could be that fit yourself for service rather than seeking high political office. I mean, in the political party, not necessarily in government. So fit yourself for service rather than.
Yeah, there are more people. What is a PPP? So that's a good question. What is a member of the PPP? What does that person look like? What are the characteristics that that person should demonstrate? Or young people, or women, or girls? It should be people who want to serve, people who are hardworking. This is my understanding from our General Secretary. People who are hardworking, people who would seek to share and give back and understand the needs of people and meet those needs as far as they can. And so you don't have to hold a party card to be able to be associated with or be a PPP, or be a civic, or be a part of that. It's once you have those characteristics of working hard and wanting to serve your country and wanting to help develop this country, wanting to contribute, wanting to be on the side of right and justice and democracy and practice democratic principles and uphold democratic principles, then you're a PPP. And the majority of our country would identify and fall into that category. And so I think you have more non-PPP members who are die-hard PPP supporters than PPP members.
Look, on both times when you were our guest the past 3 years, this question came up, and you see it in people when you talk to them, that there seem to be an emphasis on the elite schools, and they need to be some more elite quote-unquote schools in other regions.
Yeah, but that's because we haven't done that well, and I take full responsibility. It has to change. Let's take a Brickdam Secondary. Brickdam Secondary gets exactly what Queen's College gets. They get the same textbooks for math, English, social studies, science, INT, bio, chemistry, all that. They get the same number of trained teachers from the same training college. We don't import teachers for Queen's College from the elite training colleges around the world. They get the same, because we care cash grant for each student, they get the same teachers resources grant, they get the same monitoring and supervision, and they actually produce children at CXE at a high 90s pass rate. But we haven't said that properly as a ministry, as a country. So the country is accustomed to these 5 top schools, and unfortunately, because we don't have enough secondary schools, we've had to maintain that placement system, and we begin by placing children in these 5 schools and then other schools. But the child who gets, say, Christchurch or Central or New Amsterdam Secondary or Anna Regina or West Dem is a child who got 92 or 93% at NGSC or Common Entrance. And so naturally, they're naturally bright, but also they do very well in the 5 years. So we've moved away from the elite schools getting resources. In fact, I think teachers teach harder in the schools in the regions to be able to get those results that they produce right now. I said to you, in the hinterland, let's take regions 1, 7, 8, and 9. For the entire existence of Guyana, we have had 13 schools, 13 secondary schools. When we came to office in 1992, it was 3. One at St. Ignatius, one at Bartik, and one at Mabaruma. And between 92 and 2015, in our hardest years, when we were a hippie country, heavily indebted poor country, when we were paying 94 cents on every dollar, when we had malnourished children and high maternal mortality rates, in all of that hardship, we built out 10 more in the hinterland community. So we had 13 at the end of 2015 when we left. When we came back into office, we had only 13. Not a single secondary school started or finished under the APNU AFC anywhere in Guyana, and definitely nowhere in the hinterland regions. We are currently building 23 secondary schools in regions 1, 7, 8, and 9. 23. And so you're no longer going to have to bring out children to go to a school in Georgetown where they're away from their parents, they don't have food and care, and they can't, the guidance that you need at age 12 from your home. They'll be able to stay home and go to school, and that's going to make a huge difference. And so you're not going to see it now, but watch for results at CSEC, at the CXE level in 5 to 7 years time, and you're going to start seeing children from all over Guyana, from places you never heard about, Masara and Coraudanao and Quebana and Waramuri, doing well across this Caribbean region. They're doing well because we're now giving them access. We're giving them the same resources that we're giving to all the other high schools. So access is a huge deal. It's a big deal in terms of what we can do with our children. So we've moved so far away from the elite schools, but we haven't moved away from the placement system, which is traumatic, and it's backward. But we can't move away from that until we have schools everywhere where we could look at the option, if Guyana wants that, to place children in schools near to their homes. And if you want these top schools, then you compete for that. We could look at different things, but we first have to have the schools in place before we look at having options.
You were trained as a lawyer, you mentioned it here, and but very early in your career, you became a minister. Sometimes do you feel like you're robbed of a career to practice law? And if you were going to practice, what branch would you preferably be in?
Divorce law.
I think it's a great privilege to be able to serve nationally like this. And the learning now is that people will change careers 3 times. So I've done law, did this. I guess there's one more time left for me. But no, I get to do a lot of law here. There's a lot of lawmaking. In fact, that's what we do in Parliament, make laws. Do I regret it? No. You know, when I was first offered to come into the Bar Jagdeo cabinet, I wasn't certain this was something I wanted to do, because it was never a dream of mine to be a minister in government. And one of my big worries, because at the time I was helping out at Legal Aid, and at that time Legal Aid was only Legal Aid in Georgetown. We didn't have Legal Aid anywhere else. And a young lawyer, said to me in the intervening 2 days where I was thinking about it, the offer, she said, well, you know, Priya, imagine if you do what you do here. Imagine if you had a national reach, what you could do for people who need legal aid and otherwise. And it's just that one sentence that kind of tipped for me. It would mean service, but you'd have a wider scope. And you know, funny, I went into office, I was human service at the time, and we had a Georgetown Legal Aid Clinic. The board had to change that to the Guyana Legal Aid Clinic. They had to change the name because we then expanded legal aid to regions 2, 3, 5, 6, 10. So it became the Guyana Legal Aid Clinic and not just Georgetown. And I would have been able to do that if I were just doing law. But then I wouldn't have been able to change the divorce laws if I was just doing law. So, yeah, you know.
Right. We are, and a lot of people are, proud of your service. But you mentioned your General Secretary several times, and then you mentioned just now that you were invited by the Bar Jagdeo government. He was president when you became minister. How do you view Bar Jagdeo? Is he inspiring to you? How do you view him?
I think the way the majority of the country does, with an enormous amount of respect for his intellect and commitment to service. What he's done is not easy. He's spent his entire life in service. in a dedicated way that almost gives almost everything to us as a nation, to our people. And I've also seen him grow and reform. He listens, he hears needs. You wouldn't believe that he answers, as does President Ali. They haven't changed I haven't changed my phone number for about 20 something years, and they also haven't. And so people get them directly to resolve issues or raise concerns. And you would think that they're too big to talk about a pothole in a street or a light that went down or a community that doesn't have water. You know, like things that you would think are minutiae, even as they do these large, big picture things. And so for both of them, I have enormous respect about the commitment that they've given and demonstrably practiced. And so I love him.
There's something.
I'm a follower. I love him.
There's something about this guy, Dr. Muhammad Irfan Ali, that you haven't seen it in the Caribbean leaders. You haven't seen it even in Burnham and Jagan. This guy's willingness to lose himself among people, and it has become his forte. And out of that become an embrace that also has become enduring. For that, I think he's going to definitely win the election, because this guy seemed to be different.
So, I've known our president, Irfan, since he was about 16. Because we were in the same youth group. Well, I was in one and he was in another, and we'd meet up for different youth activities, including week-long camps and so on. And he's always been a warm, energetic, progressive person that is inclusive. So he includes a lot of people. He has some faults. He's impatient with sloth. He's impatient with stuff not happening. But even those flaws are flaws aimed around service. And it's really, really beautiful to watch a young person give up that to a country. And I know most of us will think, what is he giving up? He's president. But he has a wife. He has 2 young children. And he has, people could have chosen travel and all kinds of other nice things. And I don't think he would consider it a sacrifice, because I think he's ingrained. I think some people are just called and made for service, and I think he's one of them.
We're people watching this program, and we're interviewing a famous name in politics. I mean, in the midst of the election campaign, it's a journalistic failure not to be interviewing a minister, high-profile one, and you just obfuscate the election campaign. Tell me, is the opposition going to dethrone the PPP in September?
I don't think. Which opposition?
Which one of them?
Which opposition? Because I don't
You should
see
have
one.
started by saying, I will ask a ridiculous question.
Yeah, I don't see an opposition, and I don't say that lightly, and I don't say that with pleasure. I think a country needs a strong opposition, or else then the burden is placed on the government, which I think we have borne very well, of evaluating ourselves and making sure we ourselves clean up acknowledge first, and then correct our mistakes. We don't have an opposition. The opposition is in total disarray. It is embarrassing to watch. They are failing people who would like to follow them. And so we don't have an opposition. So the answer is absolutely not. And we haven't started a campaign. They said we're in the middle of an election campaign. We haven't started. The PPP hasn't started their campaign in terms of the election. For me, from the day you go into office, the campaign begins, because we're never going to rig an election. If you're going to rig an election, you don't have to serve people. You don't have to bring schools. You don't have to give textbooks. You don't have to give breakfast. You don't have to train teachers because we can take your vote anyhow, whether you like us or not. For me, we have to earn your vote. We have to show you that you can trust us. We have to show you that we will work hard for you. We have to show you that once you give us this sacred thing, your vote, your trust, your confidence, that we won't let you down. And so from day one, the campaign begins from me. But in terms of for us, in terms of the whole election campaign, we haven't launched. We haven't launched yet.
Mm-hmm.
And there's
The avalanche hasn't come as yet.
The avalanche hasn't come.
Right.
But we believe in service. We believe from day one we are campaigning because, and by campaigning, what I mean is winning hearts and souls of people who might not have liked us, might not have thought about us. I have met several persons in these 5 years, and I mean scores, who I work very closely with, who would tell me that they would never have imagined voting or looking at that X, that cup on the ballot paper, because they grew up in a family that it's just not something they did. And then working with this closely with me, with us, seeing what it is, seeing what a vision is, seeing how we've changed out lives, they can't imagine not placing their X next to the cup. And if you were to walk around this ministry, you'd find many, many people like that. And that's really endearing to know. And that's what I think it's about. I think it's about winning people, not being entitled to anyone's support and not taking it for granted, but showing you that once you give me that support, you give us the mandate that we won't let you down. We'll serve, we'll make sure if you work with us that your calling that you feel fulfilled and gratified in your job because you're seeing change in the country, etc.
Are we going to see a scenario in Barbados in which Mayor Motley won and the opposition didn't even win a seat? You envisage something like that coming in September the 1st?
There are two different systems. So Barbados has a different electoral system from us.
First past the post.
Yes. So I don't see that, but I see the opposition. I see the PPP winning by a large majority.
Absolutely.
Yeah, handsomely.
Usually, political parties give people responsibility during election, like for an area or something. And you being a minister, I foresee you would be assigned an area.
So I'm
Or you
actually the
given-
Region 3. I'm the geographical representative in the National Assembly for Region 3.
For Region
So
3.
I have political responsibility for Region 3.
So you're
They are-
responsible for that Lenore market in the night?
we listen to people and we do what people want.
Oh, it's a nice market from what I've seen.
Yeah.
It's lovely.
So Region 3 is where I have, I am the servant of the people of Region 3 a little bit more than I am of the rest of the country.
So those are that area will get more of your attention during the election campaign.
Possibly.
I'm glad you asked about that. What is going to become of that stelling, that reading group stelling that we as
Yeah. So that's
teenagers
going
we
to be
knew we
totally.
crossed that ferry so many times.
Yeah, that's
What's
going
going to
be.
become of it?
You should go and take pictures. You will not recognize the new Stelling. You won't recognize the new Vreed and Hoop. So I tell children and young people nowadays, take pictures. They don't know what I mean, but everybody has a phone. Everybody has a camera. You see these young people? Snap, 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 and save it. Send it up to the cloud, because Guyana in the next 5 to 10 years, you won't recognize the Guyana we know. And there are going to be endearing pictures that we see when we're old about what we used to look like, and it's going to come from all quarters, from our young people, from older people, and so on. But Vreed and Hoop is going to be completely reformed. I think the president has already said that, and the stelling and all of the stellings will look very, very different.
Okay.
I can't wait to see that. So a quick request before I ask the next question. When the new Demerara River Bridge is open, if you have any influence, can you, on that particular thing, can you ask the people who are making the decision to leave the Demerara Harbor Bridge for another month or more and allow only foot traffic so that people can go and have picture of the new
Take
bridge
the pictures. Well, I see
from the harbor bridge. Yeah.
conversations have begun about leaving the bridge up for light traffic. We're a consulting kind of government. We don't do anything without hearing what people want and then considering that and weighing it against what might be other considerations for other communities. So I think this.
But it can be heavy vehicular traffic because you're going to have that built up again. So that.
So the new bridge, I think, is going to be. I already see people talking about the road that was opened 2 nights ago, and saying I saw someone saying 17 minutes is what it took them. It used to be 45 minutes. I've seen people saying other networks were significantly reduced in terms of time and frustration because I'm figuring people use the new road. The East Bank, because I haven't driven myself too much recently because my license expired, and my children don't want to drive with me. They equate a license with knowing how to drive, and I'm trying to tell them it has nothing to do with my capacity. It has to do with whether I can lawfully use the roadways. But if you are not driving, you could get lost on the East Bank network because it's just so many new roadways that have gone up. You don't know where to turn. You don't know. So it's very different country being built out and being built out rapidly. And that took a laser vision. It took putting on blinkers against the noise, even as you address noise from the top President Ali down to all his ministers, to make sure, even as we address small issues, the farmer who can't get her shallot sold at border to make a profit, or the man who can't bring his cattle out to sell it, or the indigenous leader who can't or needs guidance about how to develop tourism products in their village. Even as those smaller issues were being dealt with, look at what Guyana has become over the last 5 years in terms of road networks and bridges and investments from local and foreign people. I haven't been able to pass by as yet because we've been enormously busy and out of town, and so a lot. But look at the hotel that just went up. The pictures it looks like a corner in London. Jewels by Kings. So even as we build out a new skyline, and that really takes focus and vision and a determination that this is what we want. The smaller issues that affect people's everyday lives have not been left behind. The person who can't get her child to school on time because of transportation, or needs a transfer, or has a sick child, or those are issues that are just as important to us as building out the beautiful Guyana. But it really took a lot of focus, I think, and staying on the path of not being distracted from what we came here to do.
You said, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you said in one's life there are 3.
The literature says.
Okay, and so law, government. What's the third one you want?
I don't know. I don't know that I want a third one.
But you said,
the
literature says 3.
The literature says a
saying
person.
is that the world is still open for a third.
No. The literature, I think it's nice. It's because children now, I see them concentrating on what I want to be. And so that's how I started researching this. You don't have to be one thing or the other. Give yourself options. I did Politics 101 with Freddie Kissoon, 30 years ago. And now I'm in a government institution. Before I came into government, I'd never been frustrated by government services. I'd never once then. I didn't think I'd have the patience to deal with public servants on a daily basis, because I was running my own practice and able to do that the way I wanted to. These offices are dictated by so much other agencies and bureaucracies and so on. So I tell children now, I say that to say that our young people now have a wide scope of what they can be. They don't have to stay with being one thing. My girl outside, she's excellent at what she does. Very young, 28, really good at accounting and making sure we don't go over budget and running those kinds of things. But she's also now doing a degree in tourism and hospitality management. And so she's not going to be, and she shouldn't be, someone just running a minister's office. She's far more than that. And so I'm just saying that the world is so wide open now, and with stuff like the Ghana Online Academy of Learning and free university education. At Goal, what we have is we're working with 20 foreign universities to give people, mostly young people, the opportunity to do degrees and PhDs and masters and certificates in a wide range of subjects. So you could be a teacher now who is teaching, and even as you're teaching, you decide, we're building 9 hotels in this country. I want to learn how to do interior decorating. Or I want to learn how to do hotel management. So even as I do this career, I'm preparing myself for what a second career could look like. And that's the beauty of where we live right now and the opportunities we have. My PR head said yesterday.
The lady that is sitting down in this room.
That said yesterday, I'm
Observing
watching you with a
carefully.
hawk's eye to make sure you don't ask me anything.
No.
That you shouldn't ask her, that I don't say
We're going to
anything.
do 2 different.
She wanted to do interior decorating yesterday. She said, give me a chance to do this the next time we're doing an event like this. And that's the beauty of not only a world that allows that, but a government and a country that provides those opportunities for people. You don't have to stay in one field or another anymore.
We're going to do something different I don't know if it's ever been done in any interview, but people innovate. We're going to ask this young lady here to come up just in about 4 minutes we have left, but I would like you to look at that desk with all those cards there. There's a photograph behind one of the cards that says you are a gift. Is that you there?
Yes, that
But
is.
could you ask your PR to bring that photograph and stand next to you, and let's see, put it to the camera. Could you ask her to do that, please? Could you get that
I
photograph
guess.
that says, is there any other photograph with you?
So the cards that you're seeing are cards people send me, and I don't like throwing them away. So I have
Let's
all
see
the
that
cards.
photograph. Yeah.
from all the cards my husband has ever given me over the years, Valentine's, birthdays,
No,
Christmas, and
tell
he's
our
a
viewers
card
what it is.
person.
Come into the frame. No, come into the frame. Come into the
is
frame
it? I
next
don't
to your
remember what
minister.
it
First of all, what's her name?
This is Sheena Henry.
We getting her in the frame,
Hi.
operator. Sheena, please say hi to our viewers.
Hi to the viewers.
So you like your PR?
I do, I love it.
I'm going to ask you a stupid question. It's so stupid that the word asinine could be applied to it. Do you like your minister?
I love my boss.
She's a good
Yeah,
lady?
she does. She gives me complete creative freedom to do whatever it is I want to do.
What is this? You have on a mask here. Can we get this full? What is this? You getting this full? No. Could you explain this? What is this about?
You know, this is
You have
someone
on
framed this. I think Fazia Baksh framed this photograph.
You're getting her. You're getting Sheena. Come a little bit closer. Sheena, maybe
This
sit
was-
next to me.
Come sit, you can sit here, squeeze in. So Sheena and I are a team. She's 24, 23.
Oh, this is
sorry.
not you?
This is me.
Yeah.
And so, but no, I'm just telling you a little bit about her. And she did PR, and she loves what she does. And she's a hard worker. And so last night at 9 o'clock I called, and she was still here doing stuff. And you would see a lot of productions from education, and you'd think we have a large team. I have one PR person and one cameraman. And those are the posts I inherited when I came. The cameraman was here since Nicolette was here. And I haven't changed out any of my staff. This was the first day we went into Parliament, I think, in 2020. And I didn't frame this. Someone framed it and sent it to me, and they probably put it up there. I think Fazia Baksh, our DCO for school support, sent this picture. I think so. And then the girls framed it.
There's another frame photograph there. What is that about?
I don't remember.
Look, it's about
I don't remember.
you in the frame.
I can't remember. I can't see it from here because the card is blocking me. But something here.
She knows. You know that photograph. Is the minister in the frame?
I do not. The card is blocking it.
Oh, so you would know what. But you the minister in here every day. Now, I want to end. Operator say, our time has come. Could you tell us the one thing you still have to do and you want to do, either as a Minister of Education or as a minister? It's there and you want to do it.
The one, as Minister of Education, I would, for sure, I want to make sure all the schools are finished. I want to see teachers trained and retrained in a specialized way. But the one thing that I'd really, I feel like we ran out of some time with, we're currently building a deaf school and autism school, but I'd like to pay some more attention to our children with special education needs. I don't feel like we've done a lot of administrative things. Like we've appointed an assistant chief education officer for special education needs. We have created and established in excess of 20 new classrooms for children with special education needs. But I think the parent who has a special needs child and who needs our service probably needs us more than the regular parent. And I'd like to see that, even though it's a small population, them being served fully.
We gotta go. I like the painting that hangs over your head. Quite an interesting painting. And I wonder how she's going to react when she sees herself with 44,000 people looking at her. Sheila?
Okay. I wouldn't be acting in any way. I'm not camera shy.
She's not camera shy, she's PR.
Oh, if she's PR, she can't be camera shy. One thing I need to tell the viewers, your room, your office is adorned with some lovely paintings. I like that one with the coca and the fisherman. But we were chatting with Minister of Education, Priya Manickchand, and just before we end, her PR, Sheena Easton. I'm going to ask Sheena to do something unusual, and we're going to end on that. Just put your hand around your loving minister, please.
Sheena Henry. Yeah.
The minister and Sheena Henry the 8th, thanks for being with us. Have a pleasant weekend. Catch you later. Bye-bye.